Acting News Night. Now, 90-year-old Nyaniba, who got saved by an NGO, is now doing well and intends to become an ambassador to get girls out of the street or off the street. Metro News has been tracking her since she was picked up, and we shall share that with you. But before that, here is a brief summary of what we found earlier about her profile.
Her struggle began a little over a year ago. She was fed up. Her parents had virtually left them at Nyaniba in the central region, along with her 4 siblings, to their fate. And in line with a common practice in her village, she was put in the care of her granny, already sick, weak, and hardly does anything to give them the comfort and direction in life. Amma was traumatized and could hardly sleep until she mustered courage one day to take responsibility for her own life, maybe to end the cycle of poverty in her family. She set off to Accra, uncertain about the terrain and the sharp difference compared to the poor village where you don't pay for access to unit, for example. She arrived at one of the busiest terminals, Kanishi, one hot afternoon and observed patiently. And her first ordeal began after meeting the supposed savior, a man. The yogurt and donut seller had noticed she was Abba fresh, literally meaning someone who had just arrived, had no clue about city life and very vulnerable. Her supposed helper wanted to help her settle down, but little did she know she was a prey, someone cheap enough to satisfy his sexual desire. For months, Nyaniba lived with this man in one of the small huts at Kanishi. Days, weeks and months passed, no money to live on her own. She was subjected to abuse in the name of genuine affection, and soon she became pregnant. How was she going to tell her story? She never knew the background of this man, and bitter as it was, staying under his roof was still a painful option. As if she was destined to suffer, Amma soon realized things were not going to improve. This was after her pregnancy began to pop out. Her man abandoned her. She had no place to lay her head, and eventually returned home full of disgrace, regret and pain. But as she learnt lessons, Amma made a second attempt. 18 then, she began by selling toffees and other consumables with a startup capital of 50 cedis. And yet another trouble. Her 11-month-old daughter fell very ill. Death was staring at her, and there was no option. Medical bills drained all her capital. But Amma had learnt a bitter lesson and was poised to move on. She joined young girls her age selling cold sachet water on the streets. The commission was enough to keep her going, but this did not go with surprises.
Let me give you just 50 cedis so I can have sex with you.
No, I will not agree.
It was a bright Saturday morning, September 27, 2014. My car had developed a fault. For the first time, I decided to accompany my mechanic to Abosokai, home of vehicle spare parts in Accra. This was where I met Amma. She was sweating, tired from the heavy load on her head and the baby at her back. She had not made sales since morning. Surprisingly, as I got to know later, traders along the lane had vowed not to buy from teenage mothers. Why? The response was very intriguing as I eavesdropped. This prompted me to film with my smartphone and share Ama's ordeal with you.
And here is the good news. Nyaniba is now doing so well. Well, let's see how her life has transformed for the better.
Has really improved. Because remember when we went to her place in Kaneshi, she said she had been praying to God that all she wanted to do was to do tailoring, and then also went there to rescue her. And once she had prayed and told God she wanted to be in tailoring, she had really improved. She's been able to sew so many things, and I'm grateful to God for that.
That's Madame Alberta Ekusika Ado, summing up how Nyaniba has been faring since she took care of the streets of Kanishi. The news team decided to follow up on Ama 6 months after we first aired her story detailing her plight and that of a young baby. Wednesday, February 11th, 2015. Ama, as usual, was busy at her desk, learning her trade, and she was overwhelmed by her new life. She displays some of her handiworks.
Yes, 6 panas. And man, who so a hip, no waist, no watching bet 6, no apam. 2 I say, no 1, no 1, no 2, so anything, say 6 panas.
Okay. And in your Wimbium?
Pacha 4 panas. Usubo so waist, no so a hip. No, we are watching for no lie back with that back with nature back with that back with 94 panas.
Okay, so that's Ama explaining to us exactly what she's been learning over the past few months. She talks about the 4 panels, she talks about the 2 panels. If you're a woman and you sew, I'm sure you're so familiar with these things. These are slits that she did herself. Now, Nyaniba desires to be an ambassador for street girls at the right time.
He said, I made a catch a girls from there. Was one showing you a memo. Cause member doing dinner when you're that out your pay, will you wage our life farm? That's not my catch and bama.
All right, so that's Ama Nyaniba, the lady who has now got a place to call a home, a family away from family that she can rely on in times of trouble or when she is down. All glory, she says, and as the director says, goes to God. Director of Passion for Child and Mother Ministry, Alberta Ekusika Ado, was full of praise to God for the opportunity to serve humanity.
I realized the whole of Ghana was looking at me, so I couldn't have failed. So I try my best to always encourage Ama. Most especially, I tell her, you know what, Metro TV is nationwide. Even people in Winneba are looking at you, so you really have to do your best, put in your best, so that when they look at the first scene that we said was in September, to date, they will see, yes, God has really done it. It's not my doing, it's not my effort, it's her.
Sarah Dunning is Ama's tutor.
Ama is a good girl. When you cut the thing to her to sew, it's too difficult to her to do, but small, she can make it. She can make it.
What makes you too sure?
Grace. The effort he put up.
She tells me her performance has been humbling. And before we left, the news team was treated with some savories prepared by the students. It's obvious Ama is living her dream, and we can only but wish her the best of life.
It takes a day or a second for your destiny to change.
Absolutely. That's how the power of God.
So you see the potential in her,
Absolutely.
the talent in her.
Absolutely. I mean, who would have thought that this lady that we met sleeping under the shed would just grow to become somebody who is doing something for herself, not just herself, her baby.
And you can imagine the 101 girls we have on the streets.
Absolutely.
What they are capable of
That's
doing.
right. I know.
All right, so we'll do our bit.
Absolutely. That's why we're called as